Welcome back, listeners. I'm Robin Black, and this is It's All About Healing podcast. Today, we have a special guest with us today. She is going to tell us a little bit about her healing journey through her travel experiences, as well as generation healing from generational wounds. And Nandi, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm excitedly nervous to start this podcast, but I'm feeling really good and really hopeful.
Yes, me as well. So, for Nature's Balm, and this is your Instagram page, correct?
Correct.
Okay, tell us a little bit how you founded Nature's Balm.
Nature's Bomb started back in 2021. I went through a healing journey in 2021 that really brought me to my knees. I was going through, let's say, a situationship of sorts that was not the best. I was dealing with a lot of workplace trauma. I was battling my own bouts of suicidal ideation and depression and anxiety. I was losing loved ones during COVID. I had a friend that who died by suicide, but I did not immediately know that at the time. So we spent a month looking for him, trying to figure out where he was. So all within a span of probably 8 to 10 months, I was dealing with a lot of things that caused me to be accelerated into a healing journey. One that God literally brought me to my knees and had me sit down and cry out because I was like, I can't do it anymore, Lord. Like you, one thing after another, like it's just too much for me. And you know that I'm usually the person that people come to for help. And I was like, I don't know who to turn to for help other than you at this moment. So through that healing journey, he kept inviting me to be more vulnerable, to be more open, and be more honest about where I am in life and how I'm healing through those experiences. So Nature's Balm came about through that. God had asked me to turn what was a private life and a private page into a public page to put on front display. Um, what it is that I'm healing through and how I am healing. And a lot of my healing took place through travel experiences. So I'd be ushered to a country to learn about myself, learn about the country, and also be able to take those learnings and point it to how it's helping me heal through the things that I mentioned previously. So Nature's Balm was born out of a period of pain that led through a beautiful journey of healing and self discovery.
Right. So it seems like your pain definitely is what has given birth to your purpose. And your purpose is to have this outreach to others as well.
Yeah. So from that, after I did what I needed to do for myself, God said, okay, you're in a good place. Now I need you to help usher people through a similar experience or their own particular healing experience. But these experiences for me, he has me focusing specifically on people of the African diaspora based in America. And the focus is about reconnecting them to self, to others, and to communities specifically back on the continent of Africa, in West Africa, in Senegal, and the Gambia. So now I am in a position of curating and creating cultural birthright experiences to Senegal and the Gambia for people who are healing or people who are interested in self discovery, people who want to maybe experience Africa for the first time, but more importantly, people who want to reconnect with themselves, their ancestral roots, and to connect with the people on the land.
Nice. So, and when you're taking, do you take several people on these retreats, or when you're taking them to Senegal?
Yeah, so it's a minimum of four. I like to have them be intimate groups. I think it's really important to have smaller groups, one, to build the community and have the safe space be created. And usually, when you have larger groups, probably of 15 to 20 or more, it kind of gets, I personally feel that you lose a little bit of that intimacy, that most groups need if you're trying to heal through very challenging things. Like going to visit Gore Island or Kunta Kinte Island can be very heavy for some people. So going to visit it as a larger group does feel a little bit more like a touristy attraction versus like a spiritual healing journey and moment for someone of the African diaspora who might need more time sitting in a certain space on that island, and actually contending with what they might feel in that
Right.
space. So I prefer to have no little than four people, no more than 10 people on
Mhm.
these journeys, just to keep them safe and keep them open to discussion and building that community with one another. Um, and I'm apologizing. I just completely forgot the first part of your question. I just it just slipped me.
Even I forgot what I asked. I'm getting so into this conversation, and I want to know definitely about your experience on Gore Island. So I'm just like,
I'm so sorry. It was
I,
like I felt myself going into another direction and going further, and I was like, wait, I don't think that's where we went. That's not where we're going. I had to pull myself back. So maybe I should have just kept going where I was going. I apologize. I really
no,
do.
you're perfectly fine. You're perfectly fine. Tell us a little bit about your experience when you first actually went to visit Senegal.
So interesting enough, like I went to Senegal my first time in 2023, and I came across an amazing flight deal that I was like, this is too good to be true. Like, I don't understand this. And I have someone who has never been to Africa, but they trust that they really haven't really been out of the country much without me. So at this time, I had gone on several trips with them where they have built the confidence to travel, further distances. So I said, listen, here's this flight deal. I don't think we're going to get a better. I mean, it was $422 round trip. I said, we're
Wow.
I said, we're not going to find this again. And I was like, we got to book this ASAP. So at the start of the new year, I was like, do you want to go? No, no hesitation. She's like, here's my stuff, book it for us. Let's do it. And I'm like, are you ready to experience Africa? Like for your first time, are you ready to touch down and have that experience? And I would honestly say that first experience for them, they still say that it was one of the most beautiful experiences for them. But for me, it was beautiful to witness someone who has never been to the continent before experience their roots in this way and like heal through that experience. But the connections that we made that was so serendipitous, and I'll tell you about one of them. We were in the airport, our flight was delayed, and a gentleman who was going back to Senegal started talking to us, and I was just like, okay, like, yeah, let's chat. And then he was like, yeah, I could take you guys to your hotel and then you can come back to my house and my wife can cook for you and you can, have a traditional meal and everything. I was like, I'm more of the very, let's do it, let's
Yeah.
experience this. But also my friend is a little bit more reserved in how they travel. But because I have cultivated a spirit of travel for them that was safe and aligned and they trust me and they trust the guidance that I had from God, they looked at me and they said, if you're down to do it, I'm going to do it. And I
Mm.
said, to God be the glory, because I know this person usually is a little bit more anxious and a little nervous about things. So I said, we're going to do it. So we got in the car with this gentleman. They drove us to our hotel, and he even went into the hotel to make sure that the hotel was like a stand-up hotel, was nice. He made sure he talked to the people at the front desk, made sure he organized a taxi for us to get back to his house after we cleaned up to go for dinner. Um, and then I got outside to get to the taxi, and he was on the using my I had to use my cell phone, like give the phone to the taxi driver. I'm hoping no one's gonna steal my phone so he could talk to them, and it's just like, make sure you bring them to this location, et cetera, et cetera. And we get in the taxi and go to this man's house, and there's a full spread. I'm talking about a full spread of jollof rice and fish
No.
yassa and chicken yassa and like baobab juice and wanjo and like all this stuff just for the two of us. Like I'm talking a meal fit for like 6, 7 people for the
Yeah.
two of us. So we thought that we were gonna have it, sit down with them and eat. They just made it just for us. They made it just for us, and we sat there for the evening having conversations. And because there's a language barrier, because I don't speak French, the husband spoke French, English, and Wolof and other languages. So we were all communicating and translating with one another. But that experience was like the very first. It was the first time I got on the island. Not excuse me, on the island, on the continent to Senegal, and I was like, oh, so this is what Teranga is. And
Wow.
I heard about Teranga, which is like an extreme form of hospitality, but
Yeah.
to experience it on your first experience to Senegal and to
Yeah.
experience it to that magnitude, I said, oh, Senegal is doing something completely other. Like I know there's Southern hospitality, but this
Yeah.
is on a whole nother level. So
Yeah.
much so, Robin, that after my friend left, because my friend was only there for a week, and I had asked God, I said, I'm gonna just do 2 weeks and I'll come back. He said, no, you're staying for 5 weeks. I said, excuse me.
Mhm.
So I actually stayed in West Africa for 5 weeks. And but when my friend left after the week, it got to the point where I couldn't find a place to stay for various reasons. And he just come back to my house. So I stayed in this person's house that I just met for another 4 consecutive days with his family in a second room. And that was my first experience in Senegal.
Wow, that is amazing. And I know briefly before we started this podcast, you were saying that there's beauty in our differences. So tell us a little bit about our differences from West Africa to in America.
Yeah, I think for me, the largest difference here in America is that we're very individualistic. And
Mhm.
I've been to several African countries, and what I find in pretty much all of them, there is a community. Everyone is in community, whether you're in community through family, the people that you live in the surrounding area, or even within your workforce. Like there's a community that's built, and it's very sacred. It's very intentional.
Mhm.
Whereas here in America, we are pick yourself up by your bootstraps, one person team, and we don't often welcome community, or we are searching for community. Sometimes it's hard to find that community, or the community only becomes the same people that have the same thought process as you, or that are living in the vicinity that you've grown up with, or it's just your family. And there's nothing wrong with those communities, but I think while in Africa, you notice that the community extends far out than
Mhm.
just the immediate family. The way I was brought into that household, as if I was a sister, a long lost cousin, or just like a family member that they hadn't seen in a couple of months or over 2 years. Like I did not feel like a foreigner. I did not feel like an outsider or a tourist. I felt like someone was genuinely like, "Hey, sis, like, this your first time in Senegal? I'm
Yeah.
going to show you what Teranga is." And no other reason, just because they just had it in the goodness of their heart to want to give us that experience. So I don't find that um, many people here in America have that same interaction, because I do feel that we are a little less trusting,
Mhm.
a little
I
more
agree.
guarded,
Mhm.
and I don't want to say judgmental, but there's a wall that we
Mhm.
have to penetrate first before we allow someone into our own personal space. And
Mhm.
for many reasons, some very good and some because we've just been conditioned to live in this way. Whereas I find that everyone in Africa that I meet is just like, welcome home, sis, or, oh, you want to learn the language? Here are some words. Mangadas. Okay, magnifique. Right? Like I'm learning
Right.
some of the
Yeah.
language. Right?
Yeah.
I was starting to learn, Wolof and
Yeah.
Jola and some Mandinka, and I started to learn French. And like
Yeah.
all these languages, because everyone there is speaking at least like three languages, or maybe
Yeah.
two, but like everyone speaks so many languages. So it's just such a communal atmosphere, and I think that is what makes West Africa different than America. I will say though, West Africa, in my opinion, is a little bit more expensive than other parts of Africa. So
Mhm.
I found that being in Senegal, Cape Verde, and the Gambia, that the prices, if you weren't eating local, like if you were moving away from the traditional meals, you can still spend about the same price that you might spend in some American cities. So
Okay.
that's just the only caveat I would say, that maybe they're similar in that regard to a little bit, but yeah, the price is higher than some other African countries.
Nice. And I definitely want to get to the generational wounds that we spoke about briefly before we started as well. But before I get there, I want to know what your experience was like visiting Gore Island as well as the slave mansion.
Yeah, so I've gone to Gore twice. And first time I went solo, and the second time I went with a smaller group through Nature is Balm.
Mhm.
And both experiences were completely different. The first experience, as I said, like being on the healing journey, there was a way in which I wanted to interact with the island. I
Mhm.
wanted to have a moment to be still in the place, to just receive and feel,
Yes.
and to connect. Uh, and and I'm a very honest person. I'm gonna keep it 100. When I first got there, it was not that. I could not feel that, because I was being approached by many of the people that work and or live on the island to go here, to do this, to just get a tour guide and move. And I was like, I just need a moment. Can you, like I'm here for the first time. Just give me a beat, please. Like I just need a moment. So eventually I ended up hiring one of the locals, a young guy, to just like walk me around the island, because I was like, a part of my process and a part of Nature's Balm is giving back and paying for the services in these countries to the local people, right? I want to make sure that we give back to those that live and work there, especially ones that are very independent to themselves in that field. But so I hired one of the local guys to walk me around and give me some of the history. And then when I got to the actual slave house, um, again, because he couldn't go with me in there. So when I got there, again, I was approached like, "Come, let me tell you all about it." And I was just like, "Wait, like I'm feeling stuff, and I want to feel it. I genuinely want to feel it before I go into a tour. Like, just give me a moment." And then it got to the point that a gentleman was just like, "Sister, I'm not." He was a tour guide. He's like, "I'm not going to hound you. Like, I just want to give you the history of your people."
Yes.
And I just want you to learn about this space here. And I said, okay, I'm fine with that. Like, sure, let's walk me through it. And listening to him explain the history of Gore Island, but also what it felt like for him to live there as someone on Gore Island was it's three different stories. It's my story as a returner, coming back to the continent, coming back to Gore Island, and not knowing exactly where all my ancestors are from, right? So I feel genuinely whenever I'm returning to the continent, I'm returning to where all of my ancestors are from because I don't exactly know where I am from in particular. So my story as a returner, but also hearing about the stories of the ancestors there, but learning about the story of someone who's currently living there, those three stories, the way they juxtapose each other and like also how they intertwine. So that instance was really hard for me to fully get grounded because of all the pulling for me to just be somewhere and do something. But my second time, when I brought a smaller group through Nature's Balm, was a completely different experience. We had a beautiful um, tour guide whom I plan to work with moving forward on this particular part of Gore Island, because the way he was going through a healing journey and how he spoke about what it felt like to be a citizen of Senegal, to be a resident of Gore Island, and how for him he had to move off the island because
Yeah.
he felt too strongly of the energy there, how he constantly felt depressed and anxious and was doing things that was against his faith as a Muslim man, but also against his tradition because he just felt so much pulling on him that he
Mhm.
had to remove himself from the island because the energy just wasn't right. Um, and how he connects with the island now as a healed person. What does it mean for him to tell the stories of the individuals there and to be able to tell the stories to Black people like me and the people who are on the tour to like connect in a different way? Because from what I understand, the way they tell us the story is a different way than how they tell other people who are not people of color.
Mhm.
And that experience was I was able to actually feel. And there's an area behind the stairs, excuse me, that you can go in, and that was the area where they would keep the bad slaves, um,
Mhm.
and they would force many of them in there for an extended period of time. And there was no when I say it's like a think of a closet that you have under your stairs, like a small door. It's not even probably 3 feet high, and they would
Mhm.
force many of them in there. And then to hear the story about how Nelson Mandela spent time in there, several
Mhm.
minutes in there, how he came out crying because he could feel and connect with the people that had lived in this horrible experience. Um, and then I went in there,
Yeah.
to sit. They don't allow people to sit in there too long because too many people can probably feel things that will be hard for them to navigate. But to feel the energy, but then to walk out, even though I felt frustrated and I felt pain and I felt hurt, I don't want to cry, but to come
No,
back,
I'm getting teary.
but to come back as a Black person to Africa, to be able to say like your dreams are still being realized, that I'm here and I'm trying my best to bring more people to this space. I want them to know that what you went through was not in vain and that we're trying. We are reconnecting to self, we're reconnecting to the land, and we want you to know that we're living proof that what you went through is materializing in beautifulness and
Yeah.
community and wholeness and healness. And we're just really trying to heal one another. And so, yeah, it was deep. It was transformative. It was also eye opening.
Mm-hmm.
And it allowed me to move from a space of being hurt and frustrated to a place of hope, resilience, and to stand in the doorway of the door no return. And
Right.
it's so crazy because it's such a beautiful island. It is such
Mm-hmm.
a beautiful island. And to stand there and know that they physically may not have been able to return to Gore Island, but I am here returning as your ancestor. I'm here returning to tell you and to show you that like there's power in us and we don't give up and we're going to continue to fight and heal ourselves and unify people. And that's really what I took away from that experience.
That is very powerful. Thank you for sharing that. So, as far as your healing journey, and you're stating the generational wounds. Tell us a little bit, if you don't mind. Tell us a little bit about your wounds that you needed to heal, and how this kind of started your healing journey as well.
Yeah. Whew, where do I begin? So, I grew up in a single parent household,
Mhm.
and that comes with its own trauma. I grew up with my mom in the projects, and or she would say, "Don't call them projects. It's just housing development because there's no project that they're working on here."
Yeah.
um, and my mom was the first person to actually take me to Africa. I went for my first time as a toddler to Nigeria, and my
Mhm.
mom was going through her own self discovery journey at that time. We had no connection to anyone in Nigeria. And she was just like, I want to go. I want to go. I want to learn. I want to explore. I want to find community. I just want to do this for myself. And I was in tow with her. And from that experience, and I think when I talk about my healing journey, it varies because I think I've had exposure to so many different things as a young child. My mom even used to take me to powwows, right? So,
Yeah.
like, I had different ways of healing through communal experiences and like
Yeah.
the journey of self discovery. So, my healing journey is not going to sound like probably something that's like traditional or cookie cutter because I didn't experience life in the same way because I had different tools to pull from. So going to Africa for my first time as a 3-year old was enlightening because I was able to see Black people who had money. Like I said, I grew up in the housing development. I was staying in a house that was bigger than probably the whole building that I lived in. And they had house help and they had, a compound. Like they had all these beautiful things. And I was just like, wow, Black people can live like this. So my framing of Blackness and like what we could aspire to was shifted early at an early age. So growing up as a Black person in America, I was keenly aware of the things that we had to experience or were forced to experience here, but also had that beacon of like we don't have to have all of this. Like it is not to say that people in Africa do not are not oppressed or do not experience certain things, but the difference in what we experience and what we can aspire to is very prominent for me. So with my healing journey, um, I had to learn to trust other people. Um, and it was hard to obviously trust because growing up in a single parent household meant that my father wasn't there. So like there's ways in which I learned not to trust, build up walls. And God was forcing me to be vulnerable and to put and expose myself to trusting situations. So all the trips that I kind of mentioned and ones that I haven't mentioned yet, even my trip, I did 2 months in Asia. Both of those trips were unplanned, right?
Yeah.
God was like, go, you're going for this amount of time, don't have an itinerary. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have an itinerary. And I said, well, that's not safe. But
Yeah.
also, you know me, God. I plan. I'm good at planning. I can order. I can do. And he was like, "Will you trust me?" And what you want me to trust after I just told you that one of the things I needed to heal was
Yeah.
trusting people.
Yeah.
So you want me to trust you? Well, how am I going to trust you? Like I can't feel you, right?
Yeah.
How do like I see you but I don't see you? Like
Yeah.
I can hear you, but I don't hear you. How am I trusting you? What am I trusting you with?
Right.
And that was one of the biggest things that I had to heal through is learning to trust him, to trust
Right.
what he will bring along my journey, and to trust myself enough to know that he's brought me this far. He ain't gonna leave me. So I have nothing to lose but to at least try.
Yeah.
And that has been a big part of healing because I'm trusting him enough to know that me even being on this podcast is going to help somebody in their journey, but may also bring them back to the motherland so that they can continue their healing journey, but also help other people in their journey. So trust was one of the biggest things that I had to heal from. And I already shared with you my first time touching down in Senegal, how I trusted a stranger to
Yeah.
take me to my hotel, to then allow me in his house, trusted him to feed me food, not watching how it was prepared. Like anybody in the Black community knows, like
Yeah.
we just don't do these things. You know, we don't go to strangers' houses, right? We don't get in cars with strangers. That's the ultimate setup for being kidnapped, for
Yes.
being killed. Like so, like I was putting myself in a position that was uncomfortable for me, but
Right.
because I needed to push through that experience to heal some of the ways in which I haven't trusted myself and I haven't trusted other people, I had to push through that experience. And now I wouldn't say that I'm like overly trusting to the point that I put myself in detrimental situations, but I'm trusting to the point that if you're here in my life, that you're here for a reason and that God has sent you or I'm sent to you for a specific purpose. And that I have
Mhm.
to trust that God will guide and protect me in those moments because
Right.
what's for me is not going to miss me and what ain't for me is going to pass me. Right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
trust is a big part of my healing journey.
Absolutely. And I agree with that because I love that you spoke on that because I know it's so hard for us to trust, but through our trust in him, it's like he has the divine placement, the destiny helpers. And like you said, once you arrive, the gentleman that just said, hey, I'll invite you to our home. It's like you kept telling God that I need to learn to trust. So then with that prayer, with you speaking to God, he gave you the opportunity. And with that opportunity, he gave you a chance. Right. And that's how God speaks to us is although when we pray, I'm sorry, when we
No,
pray,
don't apologize.
he gives us that opportunity to trust him. Like even if we say what it is that we're struggling with, God will present us with that struggle even more so that we can learn to trust him through the struggle.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm so sorry. And then
No.
I wanted to ask you more about the when you said the unlearning of certain beliefs that we have to go through. Tell us a little bit about that.
Um, oh, I feel like there are several unlearnings. My mind right now is going to this particular point, and it might drift to another direction as I feel different spirits moving through. But I think the unlearning of what it means to be Black,
Mhm.
um, and I think here in America, the propaganda that we have received about Africa is not in a beautiful light, right? So many people, and I'm generalizing, and I apologize to anyone that takes offense to this, but I know there's a large swath of people who preserve the propaganda in their mind about what Africa is, what Africa looks like, how the people are. And I think that's an unlearning that we have to contend with, right?
Mhm.
I, I think experiencing it for yourself is one of the best ways to unlearn that, but also maintaining or trying to open your mind to what else could be true, right?
Mhm.
Yes, there are people who are impoverished, right? But we have
Yeah.
poverty here in America, right? So, yes, there are people who, and I'm going to pause. People assume that because there are certain wars that are happening in certain African countries, that all of Africa is unsafe. Like I
Right.
had a gentleman who was speaking to me who wants to journey with me on this trip to Africa, but he's like, Nandi, I don't want to fly several hours to get to Africa, and I only trust one particular airline. I said, that's so funny that you say that because that particular airline actually does go to Africa, but guess what? It only takes 8 hours or less to get to Dakar direct. I said, so, and you already went to Switzerland, right? You went further, right? So now what is the other thing? Like, so unlearning some of the things that you have told yourself that is unattainable because of these reasons, or um the other thing was the war situation. It's like, oh well, every time I see Africa, there's always some war going on. I said that might be true in some parts of Africa, but the place that I'm bringing you, there is no war happening.
Yeah.
right? So like be more open-minded to like, or do your research to realize like not everything that you're seeing is always truthful or truthful about the areas that you plan or hope to visit. Also the unlearning about, you know, not being able to trust Africans.
Hmm.
Yeah, there are some people who might do shady stuff. There are some people who might scam. But we have scammers in America. And I'm not going to talk about the political environment, right? But, you know what I mean? We got people doing stuff in positions of power, right? And
Yeah.
people, like, in no offense to the boosters, but you got boosters, right? Like, people
Right.
still do their own hustles, right?
Right.
This is not to say that any one person is better than the other. And I think that that's an unlearning in and of itself is that we want to kind of be like, well, this is worse than this. But if you actually step back, and even as God said, like, if you actually step back and realize, like, we all have sinned. We all have done things that we probably shouldn't have done. But who are
Absolutely.
we to judge someone else for
Mhm.
doing what they have done? Whether for their own selfish gain, whether for malicious reasons, or because they just desperately needed it for the provision of something, right? Everyone has something. But if we can unlearn the position of judging based off of what we might have been told or sold in a soundbite and actually exploring with an open mind, then maybe you can realize that the person who is hounding you to buy this item or the person who is asking you to do this might be asking from a place of they might actually need money to cover medical bills. They might actually need money to put food on their table, right? So um, or they just might be honestly trying to make a living, right? Because like I said, the cost of living is pretty high right now in Senegal and the Gambia, and you know many people are struggling to find good employment.
Yeah.
And there are people, and this is not necessarily about the unlearning, but when I got there and I learned about the large number of young people who are literally putting their lives in jeopardy by getting on a boat. We're not even going to talk about how that's reminiscent to slavery, but like getting on a boat and going the illegal back way of trying to get to other opportunities in Europe
Hmm.
for the sake of just having a job so that they can put food on their table back at home. How many of them die along that voyage? I know people that they grew up with who have passed away on that voyage. And I'm talking from 15, 16, 17 up to 50s, 60s, you know, people of all ages. People, someone I know told me that they had a friend who had a veterinarian degree
Hmm.
and still chose to do this voyage because they could not find
Yeah.
employment that was suitable. You know, so there are people of all walks of lives trying to make it, right? And by any means necessary. So would you look at that person and say like they shouldn't be doing that and that's the illegal way? Yeah. But this
Hmm.
is someone who also had a degree and felt like they had no choice because their current environment is not providing them opportunities to survive and to
Yeah.
thrive. So unlearning like the immediate reaction to judge a situation based on what you see or what you've been told and to actually step further into communicating with someone to learn more about their story before you judge because you wouldn't want someone to judge you based on what they've seen or your one worst thing that you've done. All right,
Hmm.
so unlearn that, yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, this has just been so amazing talking about this. So I feel like God's presence is definitely with us. And I feel that that's what a lot of this healing journey is about is inviting him in and allowing him to kind of just lead the way. And we're just following his footsteps. And I thank you so much. But if you can, tell us a little bit more about the healing journey for those who go on this retreat with you. What do
Yeah.
they go through? Like what are the steps? What do they first do when they first get there with you? Can you walk us
Hmm.
through
Yeah, so it's a 14-day journey, with the 14th day being the day that you will depart back to America.
that? Okay.
Obviously, you're welcome to come earlier, stay later, whatever works for you. But I wanna really impress upon people that this healing journey is what you make it. It is
Okay.
not
Yeah.
something that I prescribe to you because we are all on different parts of our journey. Some people might not having got to the point of realizing that they are about to start a healing journey or need to start a healing journey. Some people might be midway through their journey. Some people are just, in and out of the journey, right? Because it's not linear. Healing
Yeah.
is not linear.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
like there was, what is it? It's like, yeah, I'm saved, but I still got hands. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there are people who are in and out of different parts of their walk, whether
Right.
with God or not with God, right? So and I don't want people to think that you have to have a certain, um, like belief or experience to be welcomed on this journey.
Right.
And healing, I don't want people to think that healing means you have to have gone through something traumatic in order to heal, right? Healing could be just simply unlearning something. Healing
Right.
can be just simply like, I'm in a position where I feel myself going through a shift. I'm not really sure what that shift is, but I know that who I was 5 years ago is not who I want to be, now. And I'm trying to make those changes in whatever regard, right? Like, and it could be healing from some severe stuff, right?
Yeah.
I want people to know that whoever you are and however you come, that's how you show up.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because that's literally what the show up for
Hmm.
yourself and for the community at large. So the way it's facilitated in a way, and I use the word facilitation loosely because I'm just ushering you through the physicalness of being in Africa. And I'm ushering you through different sites where you will experience different things and learn different things. But what you take from it is ultimately up to you, right? I can give you my perception. I can give you my view and like say, here's how I felt. But you might pull out something that I haven't felt or experienced, and that could help me heal or help someone else heal. So I just really want people to be open minded about what it is that you can experience if you are open minded enough to allow those things in and to allow whatever you are feeling out, because it's a two-way journey. So with that said, like the actual itinerary in and of itself is created in such a way that we welcome you, right? When you get there, we'll have a welcome meal together, right? We'll set intentions. And before we even get to that point, I do have conversations with people before the trip to figure out like what are their fears, what are their expectations or intentions, what it is that they want to learn or might want to experience, and then create a group for people to connect beforehand, right? And if we can, we'll meet in person or we'll meet virtually. Like we'll have, just chats, like just communicating with people so that you can prepare yourself, one, for the people that you're going to be on the trip with, but also just so that you start to build that community before we get there. So you might be a little bit more comfortable with the experience. So when you get on the ground, we'll have a welcome meal, and talk to you about the ins and outs of what to experience. We'll have moments where we'll teach you a little bit of Wolof, right? You might learn some of the basic commands of what it means to like say hello, how are you, my name is, um, and that's done so that you could connect a little bit more to the country and to its people, right? And also show a form of respect to the people that are there. Um, and then we'll experience many things. And this is also another little caveat. This is not a trip for someone who wants to come flick it up for the gram. That's not to say you won't you won't be able to flick it up. But if
Yeah.
you're coming because you want a very like curated experience of Africa that you want to showcase for that this might not be for you because this is an experience for you to actually tap in. It's not
Right.
superficial. And it's, I don't know, I don't want to say it's deep enough that you feel like you're on an academic journey. It's not that either, right? Like I want people to realize, like, show up as you are and experience as you are. But I want to temper what some of that looks like. So we'll visit the Museum of Black Civilizations. You'll learn about the history of Black people, and like from then all the way up until now, the exhibit changes because, like I said, I've been there twice,
Hmm.
2023, and I was just there in 2024, the end of 2024, all the way through January of this year.
Right.
So the exhibit changed a lot. So you'll see some contemporary stuff. You'll see it's just so beautiful to see how it transitioned. And I don't want to spoil it because it's just beautiful. So going into the museum, we'll visit the African Renaissance Monument, which I think many people are aware of. The large
Yes.
statue, with the
Mhm.
baby pointing towards the future and the mom keeping us grounded in, the present and the past. So just we'll visit that, and all of these experiences, what we'll do after that is to reflect.
Right.
Everything is optional. I will say this, everything is optional. If you don't want to reflect as a group, you don't have to. If you
Mhm.
want to take your time to reflect on your own, that's fine too. But I always want to hold space for people to have dialogue and discussion, because this is a lot of information to take in and a lot of feelings to have and experience. So we always welcome that opportunity to have a facilitated discussion or open free flow discussion. So we'll visit other prominent sites. You already mentioned Gore Island, but we'll also visit Kunta Kinte Island in the Gambia, right?
Yeah.
And those are two completely different experiences.
Okay.
Whereas Gore Island is a more of a curated experience, right? They have a stronger like tourism structure in Senegal versus the Gambia. But
Okay.
visiting Kunta Kinte Island has a raw authenticity to it,
Yeah.
and that is actually where I broke down. That I
Mm.
couldn't break down in Gore Island because because of how structured it was, like because all the
Right.
people moving around and people trying to take their photos, and that was a different experience. But in Kunta Kinte Island,
Yeah.
they actually, when you get on the island, they intentionally hold space for you as a Black person,
Hmm.
and to revere the island,
Yeah.
to pray, to connect with the ancestors, to show respect. There's a moment before you even start any tour. There's a moment where you sit and stand still and do
Yeah.
your prayers, say whatever silent worship, or say whatever you need to say to ground yourself in that experience. And the last thing I add about that was the moment that actually brought me to tears was towards the end of the tour. The guys was like, go to the like beach area for waist beads. I was like, waist beads? Why? Like, I have waist beads. Why do I need to go? They was like, no, the waist beads of your ancestors. And they literally found the shards, the broken pieces of waist beads that were made from like glass and bone and stone, and like with the holes through it, and
Yeah.
presented a few of them to me. And I was able to take those home and like have a piece of history, a piece of ancestry in my hand. And then that's when I broke down.
Yeah.
Like to be able to have that real raw connection and the
Mhm.
intentionality in that space. Um, was different. So then, outside of some of the more touchy historical pieces around slavery, we do have moments where we'll go to a safari. You'll get to experience, if it's your first time visiting a safari, see some animals, and then if you want, you can walk with lions. And then we'll, go to like the one of the biggest markets in Gambia, the Serekunda market, and like experience what market life is. We'll go to a batik tie and dye factory where you learn about the processing of making these fabrics, and if you want, you can get something custom made and or buy something while you're there. We'll also journey into the southern part of Senegal, an area called the Casamance region, where we'll connect with indigenous Jola people and learn about their culture, their faith, and like what that looks like. We'll go to one of the culture museums and like cleansing spiritual centers where you can actually connect with the ways that they do their traditional practices, and actually
Mhm.
have a moment around those spaces to like to feel, to release, to bring in whatever it is that you need to do in those moments. We'll visit with the king from one of the local villages and learn about how they become kings and rulers
Yeah.
in those spaces and what they are responsible for. And then in between all of that, there are moments where you can have leisure, where you go to the beach and you just have time to yourself. We'll have moments where we'll do a community visit of some sort, whether it'll be visiting a school, going to a local village. We'll have
Mhm.
a moment where we connect with the family and learn how to cook some of the traditional dishes, right? So,
Mhm.
and break bread with them and have discussions with them. There might be also opportunities for a sustainability project. It just depends on what trip you're going to, where you might go to one of the oyster processing to learn about how they sustain the oysters and how the oysters are a large part of, currency for them, and like what the oysters mean and how women, practice oyster processing and what that looks like.
Mhm.
So there are different sustainability projects that we can interact with depending on when you come, but it's all about doing our best to immerse ourselves in some of the lived experiences there, to foster connection and community with people there and have conversation, but also
Mhm.
to provide you opportunities where you could connect with yourself and think
Right.
through things, process and heal whatever you need to start processing and healing from or continue the journey on. I don't think we ever fully end our healing periods.
Right.
So just to open you up to more experiences, and then hopefully as you experience this for yourself as an individual, you'll take back a renewed sense of self
Yeah.
to wherever your respective home is, and you'll be able to pour into your community back at home, your family, your local people in their actual lived experience and community, and then even far out. So I believe that by going on this trip individually, we are starting to heal ourselves, which will ultimately help heal other people at large.
I like that. So it's about fellowship, but it's also about being able to build that introspection when you're there reflecting as well. So
Yeah.
I like hearing all of that. This has just been, oh my gosh, it's just been so powerful. And so you said in each retreat is 14 days, correct?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
And when is the next time that you're leaving? When is like how often do you go annually?
So right, so right now I have trips available from November up until March.
Mhm.
So whatever works for people. The only thing is just has to have a minimum of four. So if you know people, let them know. If you want to have your own personal group, that's fine too. Kind of let me know, and I can help facilitate it along those dates. But there is also an opportunity for folks if they want to have a different experience. In December going into January, there is the obviously the holiday, right? Like the New Year's and stuff like that. There's the holiday version where you can experience a different side of um, Senegal and the Gambia, and we can go to the masquerade, which if anyone is Caribbean or uh, you might know like as carnival, right? So it's a masquerading celebration where it's literally different people come with different masks that they create and different um I don't want to spoil it, but like there's just different masks that people create, and it's a big celebration. Everyone's dancing, there's music, and they just parade through the streets, and it's just a very, very beautiful experience. If people want to experience more of a holiday vibe, so that would be December into January, but ultimately trips are available from November to March, and it's all single occupancy, so you do not have to share a room with anyone, and some meals are included. For the most part, dinners are the only meals that you really have to cover, but breakfast and lunch is pretty much included every day. And all of the activities are included, and all of the transport on the ground is included.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And as far like when anyone is visiting your website, like is it just the traveling or what else does your website offer?
Right now, it's focused specifically on the travel, but people are welcome to, if they want to talk to me about something other, they're welcome to book a 15-minute discovery call.
Mhm.
And we can talk about the trip if they have any outstanding questions and concerns. But I'm not currently, but I am capable of, if people want to ask me to curate another experience for them in Africa, then I can help pull together an itinerary if that is what they're interested in. But it's mostly focused around following God's purpose for me to bring people to Senegal and the Gambia for their experiences. Yeah.
Nice. So how can
Oh wait, I'm
individuals
sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
It's not necessarily on my website, but I do want to put this plug in just in case people want to connect with me in another sense. I am co-curating a exhibit in August
Mhm.
called "What Freedom Costs," which is highlighting essentially the liberating journey of people, of Black people in
Mhm.
America, and what does that look like? So, what is the tax that you had to go through, the pursuit of you pursuing freedom, and like what does freedom look like for you now? So,
Yeah.
if anyone is interested in meeting me in person, but also seeing what liberation looks like for those in America and how they pursued that, there's an exhibit going on in August in DC and in Baltimore. So it's
Mhm.
called What Freedom Costs, and it's at whatfreedomcosts.com if folks want to connect with me there and also visit the exhibit. So
Nice. And you said
it's
it
in
was
tandem. It's a lot. It's being liberated and by going to Africa, but also how to have that here in America for yourself. And what does that look like?
and you said it was called whatfreedomcosts.com.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And that's in DC and Maryland, you said?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
The second and third weekends.
DC and Maryland. Okay. And if others want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
You can reach out to me on Instagram at Nature's Balm. You can reach out to me via email, nandi@naturesbalm.com. You can schedule a 15-minute discovery call through the website and we can do a video chat and we can chat. So there are multiple ways that you can get in contact with me. But I'm here. I want to talk to people, especially people who have their reservations about visiting Africa.
Mhm.
Please contact me. I want to see the beauty of Africa, and to help you navigate some of those challenges that might be making it a little bit perplexing for you to connect with Africa. I want to help you in that process. So please connect with me in any way that is comfortable and convenient for you.
Absolutely. And then I'll be putting all of your contact information down in the show notes as well. But before we go, what is just one suggestion or a piece of advice that you would give to the listeners?
Mm. Whew. Oh wow. Okay. I would say show up as you are, and in whatever state of being that you are in, because where you are and who you are in this moment is just a part of your journey that's going to take you to somewhere else, right? So if you're trying to grow, heal, and change, that's beautiful. Still honor where you are and who you are in this moment and be open to where you can go. So trust that in every connection, there's something for you and that you are important in this larger puzzle piece of this world and that we all have a part to play, and know that regardless of where you are and who you are, that you matter in that large tapestry of community, of unity, of healing, of freedom, of wholeness. And just be who you are in that moment, because who you are can resonate with someone in another country or right next door to you. So just be who you are and do the thing. Do the thing and trust that whatever you're doing is in divine connection and purpose.
I love that. And just real quick, because I'm just going over my notes, as far as what is your opinion or what is your take on being vulnerable and asking for help, but not being vulnerable with the wrong people? What is your take on that?
Um, yeah. So, whew, I and I'm hesitant because as someone who has been put into this position of being pushed to be vulnerable, I
Mhm.
had that same question of like, I can't be vulnerable with everybody. I just
Right.
can't, because not everybody's trusting. But I had to I had to catch myself, right? Like, I can't learn to trust people if people can't get through to me because I have this wall up of not being vulnerable, right? And I trust that whatever I'm saying to you in that moment needs to be said. I might overshare. I might tell you more than I probably wanted to tell you,
Mhm.
but like what's the harm that's going to come? And this is not to say like I'm so indifferent because I don't want people to walk around in life and being like, I shouldn't be open, I shouldn't be vulnerable because, I don't know this person or this person might misuse this information. It's possible.
Right.
It's possible. But sometimes it is life. It's just a part of the journey. I'm not sitting here saying go tell someone your social security number or like the worst thing ever, but sometimes you have to say it for your own healing.
Yes.
Like, it's less so about what the other person can do with that information. Sometimes it's really about what you need in that moment, which is to probably get it off your chest, to just
Absolutely.
say the thing. And like, once it's said, you
Yeah.
it's out, it's done, it's
Yeah.
over, right? And
Yeah.
like, and if it comes back to you, it's your piece.
Right.
Like, it's your truth, it's your story. It may not be beautiful, right? It's your truth, it's your story. You did it, it happened, you experienced it, but you cannot keep letting other people have the power over how you live your life and how you experience life. And you can't have let the power of whatever that experience was continue to hold you. And
Right.
you have to let it go. You have to let it go. And I I've been letting too much go. Like, people know too much about me now, and in a way, the old me would have been so like, are you stupid? Someone's gonna throw this in your face later. Like, and now I'm just like, yeah, they might throw it in my face later, but it doesn't take away from the fact that it happened. It doesn't take away from the fact that it's my truth. Like
Yeah,
it like I'm not gonna lie about it because it happened. Now
right.
you know about it. It sucks that you know about it, but guess what? I'm liberated from it. I'm
Yes,
liberated from it. It no longer holds me in the same way.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, like it's gonna be hard, it's gonna be uncomfortable, but there's freedom when you
yes,
just let it go. And sometimes
yeah,
you gotta let it go to let somebody else hold it. Okay? You don't
yeah.
gotta hold it no more. Let somebody else hold it. Okay?
And I agree.
So
You let it become a part of you, and it starts what's putting you in alignment. And that's what I feel that it's about is aligning with oneself, aligning with God, aligning with what is destined for you is by allowing it to become a part of you.
yeah. You can't the more you run from it, the
Yes.
more it swallows you up. And then you put yourself in isolation. Like I did a whole series on my healing journey. Like
Mhm.
day like it was like a seven day series of like my pillars of what I did to heal. And like
Yes.
I'm sitting here telling people like my business,
Yeah.
including my abstinence journey, right? Like I'm literally putting myself on front page on Front Street telling you how I have healed and what I'm healing from, right?
Yeah.
And I only did that because God said, other people need to hear this. Other
Yeah.
people, it's not just about you. I did this for you, but other
Right.
people need to hear this because somebody else might be struggling with abstinence. Somebody
Yeah.
else might be struggling with stillness and what it means to like be alone, to
Right.
be in solitude, and to be in quietness. Like some
Yes.
people don't want to deal with their thoughts, but like
Hmm.
show them how you've done that. What does that look like to you? Like some people just sometimes just need to see other people do things and hear about it so that they can step into their phase of vulnerability, openness, and freedom. So sometimes it is about you, and sometimes it is about what other people can get from that.
I agree. That is very powerful. I thank you. Thank you so much. And again, what is your website so all the listeners can hear it again?
Sure. www.natureisbalm.com.
All right. Thank you guys so much. It's been my pleasure having you on. And again, I'm Robin Black, and this is It's All About Healing podcast. Everyone, stay blessed.